Auburn, Texas Tech, and Cincinnati. Tommy Tuberville. Coach, welcome to Studio B.
Great, thank you. It's great to be here. Great to be in Provo. It's a beautiful time of the year. Went to Sundance last night, had dinner. It's just a great place. I've been here several times, but I've been coaching, and so you don't get a chance to move around and see the area. And I'm going to Park City in the morning, kind of drive around. I'm a big skier, so looking forward to that. Yeah.
Very cool. How is life now as a college football analyst compared to what you've been doing? It feels like forever.
Well, I decided to retire last December, and my wife and I, we've been married 25 years. And so after about 2 weeks, she said, you got to get a job. You got to do something. And so here's what I do. I decide, and I'm approached in Alabama to run for governor. So for 3 months, January, February, and March, I actually campaigned. I really don't campaign. I did a kind of a research thing of going all over the state, talking to people. You know, do you want me to be governor? Can I do it? What kind of governor do we need? But after about 3 months, I had a 12-point lead. I could have actually been the governor, but my wife and I sat down. We go, you know, let's go to the beach instead. So now I live in Destin, Florida. Decided not to run, and ended up with working with ESPN, and looking forward to it. Our last week's game was in Athens, Georgia. Georgia played App State, and had a lot of fun. I'm kind of staying involved in sports. I've done it for forever, and so I miss coaching. I miss the sideline, but I don't miss the the after the game and before the pressure of what goes on. It's a lot of pressure on coaches.
Yeah, now you can just enjoy Deer Valley and Park City.
Yeah.
Instead of worrying about the schemes, right?
I'm going to do it more. I'm going to play golf in the summertime and ski in the wintertime.
You can be the governor of Studio B.
Yeah.
Governor Tuberville here in Studio B.
That's exactly right. What's it like for you, too, to come call a BYU game? Because you did play BYU as the Cincinnati head coach last season.
Well, it's kind of ironic. I came here in 1990 or 91. I was the defensive coordinator at Miami, and we actually won. I won Ty Demer the Heisman Trophy because I couldn't stop him. And he actually won the Heisman Trophy the first game of the year. It was, I mean, it was an amazing performance, and we were very good at Miami. We were actually ranked #1. And then
we are well aware.
Yeah. Oh, I know you are. And so it came back as a head coach a couple of years ago with Cincinnati, and had a good game. We lost, and then BYU came to Cincinnati, and we played then. So very familiar with BYU, and of course we were in the group of 5 at Cincinnati, and we went through all this transition last year of everybody being interviewed by the Big 12, which was a farce, and who's going to get in, who's not going to get in. Well, I always thought BYU, number one, they should be in anyway. They shouldn't even have to be trying to get in, but other teams were trying to, as we were at Cincinnati. But obviously we know what worked and didn't work, and now we're on the outside looking in, as we're at Cincinnati we were, and now BYU's doing the same thing.
Tommy Tuberville with us in Studio B. He will call the game along with Mike Patrick on ESPN2 tomorrow night, BYU-Utah, 10:15 Eastern, 8:15 Mountain. You have coached in some iconic rivalries, the Egg Bowl, the Iron Bowl, and now you get to experience BYU-Utah. What do you know about this rivalry?
Well, don't forget Catholics versus convicts. When I was at Miami, we played at Notre Dame.
And you were in that game.
All the shirts. And I was in the A&M Texas game. I coached at A&M 1 year, all the rivalries. And that's what I tell people, that's the difference in college football and pro football. You have the rivalries that are set, and every year your fans get into it, your players, your coaches, and you have something to look forward to. And they're very tough on coaches, I'll tell you this. When I was in all those rivalries as a coach, you can't wait to get it over with, because the pressure's on your shoulders, because all the fans, they're looking at you going, hey, we want to be able to brag for the next 365 days. Any other game, it's just not just a game, but it's a game. Fans don't take it personal. They take games like this personal. But that's what makes college sports fun, because you have these rivalries all over the country. And this is a little different for me, having one so early in the season. Normally they're later in the season, but I've been up to see Coach Whittingham, and I talked to Kalani yesterday and watched them practice, and you can just tell there's a difference. There's a difference in the atmosphere of the coaches and the players. And of course, I've listened to talk radio driving back and forth to Salt Lake, and everybody complaining and about the LSU game with BYU and all that. But it's a lot of fun. Rivalries are what make college athletics.
BYU's in an interesting spot because they've lost 6 games in a row to Utah, and they haven't won that many versus BYU in a row in a long, long time. So what's your opinion of this game and how it may play out?
Well, it's going to be interesting. Of course, I've watched the film of both games that BYU's played and Utah. It is early in the season. You really don't have a grasp yet. Even the coaches and the team don't have a grasp of how good you are or how good you can be. That'll be told a little later in the season. So this one's a little bit different. But you can't ever count out, no matter how you played the week before. LSU, let me tell you something about LSU. They have probably one of the top 3 defenses in the country. And I know we didn't even cross the 50-yard line. You know, we looked like we were playing dead. You know, our defense played good. But you're playing against a first-year head coach who had those kids jacked up, all the hurricane stuff going on, playing at their home. And it was a scenario that wasn't very good for BYU. So you've got to depart from that and say, we're better than that. And BYU's better than that. I mean, they're better. And it's going to be a much better matchup playing at home. Everybody gets their spirits up. And you'd rather have a game like this after an LSU game because your coaches you don't have to coach. Your players are going to get themselves ready to play. And they forget about that game. So Utah's only had 1 game. I've seen both teams practice. I think it's going to be a very good game. It's going to be a toss-up. I was always under the thinking that the home team has the advantage. But if you look back at this rivalry, it really doesn't make any difference. It really doesn't.
Yeah, it's just a close game. I mean, 16 of the last 19 by 7 points or less. That said, if you were the head coach of BYU and your team had lost 6 games in a row to the arch nemesis, what would you say to your team?
Well, it's tough. It's really tough, and I'm sure all the teams that have the members of the teams that have lost those games over the years, a lot have graduated. You know, it's a memory they'll always have. Remember, I beat Alabama 6 times in a row when I was at Auburn, and it was, you know, there was people jumping off bridges and stuff from Alabama. You know, and then they hired Nick Saban, and they've only beat them 1 time since. You know, it gets that personal. Obviously, it doesn't need to get that personal, but again, Kalani doesn't have an easy job, but he has an easy job getting the players to forget about last week's loss and looking forward, because this is the game every year that BYU looks forward to, and so with Utah. So it's, you know, you never know who's going to win a game like this. It's usually for turnovers. You say that, but you look last year at all the turnovers that happened, and it's amazing that you know, BYU didn't win that game, other than obviously getting the interception at the beginning of the game and all that. But someone will stand out on both teams that will make a difference. That's what always happens, and it'll probably be somebody that you don't even talk about during the week. Somebody's going to make a play. Somebody's going to do something to either win the game or lose the game. And so that's something I always look forward to in a rival situation.
What do you think BYU does better than Utah? It's so early in the season, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, BYU runs a very special offense, and they always have. Of course, I knew Lavelle Edwards long ago, played golf with him, and he's the guy that really brought the passing game to college football. I've always told people that. You know, very special offense, an offense that's predicated pretty much on 2 people, the running back and the number 1 quarterback. Quarterback runs the show. He makes all the decisions before the snap and after the snap. And so it's really important that the quarterback plays well. You know, you have to have people around him, block for him, the protections, get everything right. But it's a very specialized offense. Now, Utah's gone out and hired a guy that 2 years ago was in high school, coaching high school football. But now they're running the so-called spread offense. It's very different. It's not near as hard to run or perfect. It just adds more athletes to the field. I would rather have the BYU offense, but you'd rather have the BYU offense when you've got an older team. BYU's very young. They're going to make a lot of mistakes. This is pretty early in the season to play Utah in this situation. So it's going to be tough, you know, for this offense to perform like it should and will in the future.
Coach, I think you're the first national analyst ever to say BYU is young. It's always the old, mature players that's yielded some playoff appearances and national championships. No, it hasn't.
No, you really can be the governor of Studio B now.
Yeah. These are that's music to our ears. It really is. Yeah. And the BYU offense has struggled. Obviously, Utah, always a stout defense. So the hope is that BYU's offense can break out in this game. Yet it's a challenge against that Utah defense.
BYU's got to find a running back. They got to get a running game. I don't care what offense you run. You can run the wishbone, you can run the single wing, whatever. If you can't run the football, you can't win games. And it puts so much pressure on the quarterback to have to do everything on his own. And so you got to be imaginative. You've got to do things with your offense of throwing the ball to the backs. You've got to run no backs. You got to put more formations in. More formations to act like to the defense that you're doing more things. Actually, you're running the same things, but you're giving them a tougher assignments to figure out what they're supposed to do when you have more formations out there to have to distinguish, what do I do and what do I not do, and make the defense play slower.
Now, the degree of difficulty in the pronunciation guides for both of these teams is uber high. How are you feeling going into the broadcast with all of the names on the Utah and BYU sideline?
Well, being from Arkansas, Alabama, Florida, I've gone, and of course, I talked to several of the sports information directors, and I've got my own pronunciation written down, on my big card that we have, and so I'll do quite a bit of that. I'll have a few number 90s and number 80s. But,
that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
But the guy that has the toughest is the play-by-play. He has to name everybody all the time. And Mike Patrick he's one of the best.
He's a pro's pro.
He's been around years and years. He's done Sunday night football, Monday night football, Thursday night, Friday night, primetime games. Worked with every analyst, and he understands. What he's doing, and he's obviously got a good mind for it. So I'm looking forward to working with him. He's helped me already a ton just working with him a couple of weeks.
It's a 10:21 or 10:26 kick. You better get a nap tomorrow. That's my only recommendation here.
Oh yeah, that's pretty late. That's pretty late, and of course
for your Florida body there.
And of course, in Florida right now, my wife's putting up the hurricane shutters, and so it was a good time to get out, for a few days.
Should have brought her here.
Yeah. So, but trying to get back, I have to go to Atlanta early in the morning. But the hurricane's not supposed to hit South Florida, but we live in the Panhandle, and shouldn't be too bad. But our prayers are out to those people down there. I went through Hurricane Andrew. That was pretty close to and my wife and I laid on the floor, and we didn't, I'm ready to see a hurricane. This was August the 19th. We're in 2 days, and everybody, we just board the house up, and, the next day we'll go back to work. Well, I'm going to watch me a hurricane, right? 1 o'clock, I set my alarm at 12:45. I get up, make me a cup of coffee. It's raining, wind's blowing. At 1 o'clock, the palm trees went sideways. I was the only coach out of 15 that had a home the next day.
Oh.
My roof didn't come off.
Wow.
I don't know how it didn't. I'm praying for those people now. They don't really know what they're getting ready to go through. It's going to be devastating, and it sets the strongest storm ever in the history.
On the heels of Harvey, and then Jose's behind it. Like what?
And then they just categorized it up to a 4. It's just this time of year. August and September is hurricane season, so hopefully we can get through this month without too much more.
Our thoughts and prayers certainly with those still dealing with the catastrophic flooding in Houston and the surrounding areas, and certainly for what's to come in Florida. Coach, what a pleasure to have you in Studio B.
Thank you. Great to be here. Yeah.
I feel like we need to do this more with Governor Tuberville.
Yeah, and that's the truth. Hey, I dodged a storm by that, I promise you.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.